Right before our wedding, my wife made me sign a prenup that said I'd leave empty-handed. She smiled like she'd already won. Then her lawyer misread a secret account number, just one line, and everything changed. My wife's face dropped. Her father went quiet. And I knew this marriage wasn't about love. It was about control. My son fell asleep about 40 miles outside Atlanta, his head tilted toward the window, mouth slightly open, the way kids do when they've finally given up fighting the road. I kept one hand on the wheel and the other resting near the console, feeling that familiar weight in my chest, the quiet pressure of trying to build something stable out of a life that had already lost too much. Brielle texted once, "Don't be late. Dad hates waiting." No heart emoji, no drive safe, just a reminder of who mattered. Traffic thickened near Midtown. I pulled into the parking deck of the law office building, found a spot, and sat for a second before waking my boy. He blinked at me, still half in a dream. "We there?" "Yeah, just a quick stop," I said. "Then we'll grab lunch." He nodded and followed me, still rubbing his eyes. Upstairs, everything smelled like money. Not the loud kind, no gold, no flash, just polished floors, clean glass, and furniture that looked like it had never seen a real argument. Brielle stood near the receptionist's desk in a cream blazer, phone in hand, already annoyed like she'd been waiting all day instead of 10 minutes. Her parents were there too. Harold Carter had that slow, confident smile men get when they think the world is built for them. Denise sat with her purse on her lap, posture straight, eyes scanning me the way people check a car for dents. Brielle leaned in close, voice low. "Marcus, this is simple. You sign. We move on." "I'm just reading it," I said. She didn't like that. The attorney, a thin white man with careful manners, greeted us like this was a routine oil change. He offered water, pointed to the conference table, and slid a folder toward me. My son sat in a corner chair with a tablet, earbuds in. I hated that he was here, but Brielle insisted. She said it would feel more like family. I knew the real reason. She wanted an audience. She wanted me to behave. I opened the folder. Page 1 had my name typed in bold, like a label. Brielle tapped the table with one manicured nail. "I'm not saying you're a bad man," she said. "I'm saying you're not coming in here with nothing and walking away with half of what my family built." Harold chuckled like she'd made a clever joke. "No offense, son," he said, "but you know how it is. Love is love. Business is business." Denise added her part, soft and sweet. "It protects everyone. If your feelings are pure, this shouldn't bother you." I stared at the pages and felt my jaw tighten. Not because of the money, because of the way they spoke to me like I was already guilty. Brielle leaned closer again. "You can be poor," she whispered, "but you can't be confused about your place." The attorney cleared his throat and started reading sections out loud, moving through the terms like he was calling numbers at the DMV. Then he paused and squinted. "There's also an account listed here. Asset code," he said, misreading a string of letters and numbers. "ADYEM. Brielle's head snapped up. "No," she cut in fast. "That's not relevant. That's not part of this. Fix that." Her voice wasn't nervous. It was sharp, possessive, like someone trying to slam a drawer before anybody sees what's inside. The attorney apologized and corrected himself, but the moment stayed in the air. I looked at Brielle and caught something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Not love, not even respect, control. I closed the folder slowly. My throat felt dry. Harold's smile stayed put. Denise watched me like she was waiting for the right kind of surrender. Brielle held her pen out, already sure I'd take it. I stood up instead. "I need a minute," I said. Brielle's lips pressed together, tight. "Marcus," she warned. I didn't answer. I walked my son out first, guiding him down the hall like nothing was wrong, like I wasn't swallowing something sharp. In the elevator, he leaned into my side. "You okay, Dad?" "Yeah," I said, too quickly. Down in the parking deck, heat rose off the concrete. I sat in the driver's seat alone for a moment while my son waited by the passenger door, and my hands stayed still on the steering wheel, because if I moved too fast, I might finally admit what that silence had been doing to me all along. Then I reached for my phone to call Brielle back upstairs. I called Brielle back upstairs and signed. Not because I agreed with the tone, And not because I believed any of it was just paperwork. I signed because my son was standing there watching me, and I didn't want his last memory of that day to be his father arguing in a parking deck. We left Atlanta with the folder in the glove box, my hands steady on the wheel, my mouth quiet the whole drive. By the time Charlotte came back into view, I told myself I could file it away and keep moving. That's what I'd always done. Handle what needed handling, keep the house running, keep the boys safe, let time smooth things out. Monday morning didn't smooth anything out. The alarm went off at 5:45. I got up, made oatmeal, packed my son's lunch, checked his homework, then drove him to school like it was any other week. Brielle didn't come down to say goodbye. She stayed upstairs, already working, meaning scrolling on her phone with her door half shut. After drop-off, I went straight to the office. My job had always been simple. Problems come in, I solve them. Trucks late, I reroute. Inventory short, I fix it before the customer ever notices. People trusted me because I didn't panic. I didn't talk too much. I just handled business. That day, I couldn't focus. My phone kept buzzing. Not with emergencies from my team, those I could handle. These were messages from Denise and Harold, little comments dressed up as advice. Brielle deserves security. A real man provides, Marcus. Don't take this personally, it's just smart. They didn't ask how my son was doing. They didn't ask how the drive went. Everything came back to one point. Prove yourself. That afternoon, I stopped at a shoe store near South Park Mall. My son had outgrown his sneakers again, and he'd been trying to make the old pair last by lacing them tighter. I picked out a clean, simple set, nothing flashy. He smiled when he tried them on. That smile alone was worth every dollar. When I got home, the first thing Brielle asked wasn't how my day went. How much were those? I froze for a beat, one shoebox still in my hand. They were on sale, I said. I didn't ask that. I asked how much. I told her. She opened the bank app like she was auditing an employee. You can't just spend without checking with me, she said. We're married now. We have a structure. Structure. That was her favorite word. Structure meant I needed permission. Structure meant my instincts didn't matter. Structure meant she was the manager and I was the one being managed. I kept my voice even. He needed shoes. And we need discipline, she replied, like she was talking about training a dog. Later that night, a couple we'd met in Atlanta, friends of Brielle's, posted a photo from dinner. In the caption, the wife wrote something about being careful who you marry. I knew it wasn't random. Brielle had told them. Maybe not everything, but enough to paint me in a certain shade. The next time they saw my name in the group chat, nobody responded. No jokes. No, what's up, man? Just silence. That kind of silence doesn't feel empty. It feels like being pushed out of a room you used to belong in. 2 days later, I met Tanya Brooks for coffee near Uptown. She'd been in banking compliance for years, sharp as a tack, the kind of woman who could smell a lie before it finished forming. We'd known each other back when I was still rebuilding after my first marriage fell apart. She listened while I spoke, and she didn't interrupt, just watched my hands tighten around the cup every time I said, "It's probably nothing." When I finished, Tanya leaned forward. "Mark," she said quietly, "you're being hit with paperwork, and you're tying your own hands because you still think kindness will fix it." I tried to laugh it off, but it came out thin. Tanya didn't smile. "Men like you get used," she continued, "because you keep calling it peace when it's really surrender." I looked down at my phone, at another message from Denise, waiting unread, and my thumb hovered over the screen like I was deciding whether to swallow another insult or finally start paying attention to what was happening in my own house. My thumb stayed over the screen for a long second. Then I slid it into my pocket and drove home without replying to Denise. The quiet in the car felt safer than any conversation waiting on the other side of that text. Dinner was leftover chicken and rice. My son talked about a science quiz while I nodded and cleaned the kitchen at the same time. Brielle barely touched her plate. She sat with her laptop open, eyes moving across her screen, pretending she was busy. When my boy went to his room, I gathered the mail from the counter. Mostly junk. A coupon booklet, a school flyer. Then I saw the envelope with the bank logo and my name printed in clean block letters. I didn't recognize it. It wasn't my usual bank, not the credit union, not the company account. I turned it over, checked the return address, then opened it with my finger. No excitement, no fear, just a steady curiosity that felt like it came from somewhere deeper than me. Inside was a notice, something about a new account application being processed, a line of credit, a verification request. My stomach tightened, but I didn't let it show. Brielle looked up when she noticed me reading. "What's that?" she asked, already defensive. "A letter from a bank I don't use," I said. "Says there's a line of credit being opened in my name." She didn't miss a beat, not one. "Oh," she said, like I told her the trash needed to go out. "That's just financial optimization for the family." The words came out smooth, rehearsed. No confusion, no surprise. I waited for more, an explanation, a detail, anything that sounded real. Nothing came. "What do you mean, optimization?" I asked. Brielle closed her laptop halfway and leaned back. "I mean exactly what I said. It's normal. People do it all the time. You act like everything is a conspiracy." Her tone carried that familiar edge, the one that made you feel childish for asking a grown-up question. "Did you apply for this?" I asked. She stood up, carried her plate to the sink, and rinsed it like I hadn't spoken. "Marcus," she said, not turning around, "I don't have the energy for this. You're making something out of nothing." Then she walked upstairs. Silence filled the kitchen again, but it wasn't peaceful. It was controlling. It was a door slammed without the sound. I sat down with the letter and read it twice more. My name, my address, a phone number listed for verification. Except it wasn't my phone number. It was close. Same area code, same first 3 digits, but the last 4 weren't mine. That detail hit harder than the letter itself. I pulled out my laptop and logged into my main checking account, the one I'd used for years. My password worked, but I hesitated anyway, like someone might be watching through the screen. In the security section, there was a list of recent logins, locations, times. 2 of them weren't mine. One showed Atlanta, another showed a city outside it. I stared at the entries until my eyes went dry. My mind tried to do what it always did, explain it away. Maybe the system glitched, maybe it logged wrong, maybe I was being paranoid. Then I saw an alert in my email. "Your phone number has been updated. Time-stamped 3 days earlier. I never requested that." The message sat there like an accusation, polite and official, telling me someone had reached into my life and moved something without my permission. I didn't go upstairs. I didn't bang on Brielle's door. I didn't start a fight in the middle of a weekday night with my son in the next room. Instead, I opened a notes app on my phone and typed the date, the bank name, the account number on the letter, the wrong phone number. Then I took pictures of everything, front and back of the envelope, the letter, the email alert, the login history. Each click felt strange, like I was recording evidence against my own marriage. I saved it all in a folder and titled it something simple, Documents. I sat there a little longer with the laptop open, listening to the sound of my son moving around in his room upstairs, and when another notification popped up, an unfamiliar number trying to verify a code, I didn't decline it or accept it right away. I just watched it, then reached for the letter again, already planning what I needed to check next. I didn't mention the bank letter on the ride down to Atlanta. Not to Brielle, not to my son. The folder on my phone sat there like a bruise you keep covered because you're still deciding whether it's serious enough to go to the doctor. Brielle drove this time. She liked driving when we went to see her parents. It gave her control over the pace, the stops, the music, the silence. I sat in the passenger seat, watched the highway signs roll by, and answered my son's questions about the trees turning color. At Harold and Denise's house, everything looked put together. Clean driveway, fresh mulch, a front door that opened before we even knocked. Denise hugged Brielle first, then gave me a quick pat on the shoulder, like she was greeting a coworker. "You're looking tired," she said. Harold shook my hand a little too firmly. "Let's eat," he said. "We got a lot to talk about." Dinner started normal enough. Fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread. My son ate quietly, eyes on his plate, already sensing the tension adults think they're hiding. Harold didn't wait for dessert. He stood up, walked to the living room, and came back with a thick manila folder. He set it on the table right in front of me like a bill. "Here you go," he said. "We need you to sign this tonight." I looked at the tabbed pages. "What is it?" "Business paperwork," Harold replied. Nothing complicated. You're family now. We're expanding a line of credit. Your name helps." Denise sighed with that practiced softness. "It's just to support Brielle," she said. "She deserves stability. You know how hard she works." Brielle reached over and pushed a pen toward me. "Sign it," she said. "This is what husbands do." A simple sentence, no warmth, no partnership, just an order wrapped in marriage. I didn't touch the pen. "Let me read it," I said. Harold's smile thinned. "Read it later. It's standard. You trust us, don't you?" I turned a page and saw the word guarantor. Then another page mentioned personal liability. It wasn't a favor. It was a rope. "I'm not signing anything tonight," I said. "I'll take a copy and go over it with my attorney." The table went quiet. Brielle's chair scraped the floor a little as she sat up straighter. "Your attorney?" she repeated, like I'd insulted her. "Yes," I said. "That's not unreasonable." Harold leaned back, eyes narrowing. "You think you're smarter than everybody in this house?" Denise dabbed at the corner of her eye with a napkin. "I just don't understand why you're making this so difficult," she murmured. "We only want what's best for Brielle." Brielle let out a sharp laugh and turned toward her parents like she was asking permission to unload. "He always does this," she said. "He acts like he's some big executive, but he's paranoid over everything. Marcus thinks the world is out to get him." My son looked up for a second, then dropped his gaze again. Brielle kept going, voice louder now. "He questions every purchase. He counts every dollar like we're still struggling. He doesn't trust anybody, and he loves to play the victim." I stared at her, trying to understand how easily she could twist my caution into a character flaw, how quick she was to make me sound small. "That's not true," I said, calm, "and you know it." Harold tapped the folder with 2 fingers. "So you're refusing to support your wife?" "I'm refusing to sign something I haven't reviewed," I replied. "There's a difference." Denise shook her head slowly. "A man with nothing always thinks people are trying to take something," she said, sweet as poison. Brielle's mouth tightened. She grabbed her phone, stood up, and walked toward the hallway. "Fine," she said. "I'll handle this." I watched her thumb move fast across the screen, calling someone, texting, setting something in motion. Harold gathered the folder and slid it back toward himself like I'd failed a test. "Eat," he said to my son, forcing a smile. "Don't worry about grown folks' business." We finished dinner with small talk that wasn't really talk. Then Brielle rushed us out, claiming she had an early meeting back in Charlotte. The next morning, my phone started buzzing before I even got out of bed. A group chat notification. Then another. One of Brielle's Atlanta friends had posted a vague message online. "Some men really marry up and still act broke." Another comment followed. "Can't stand a leech." My name wasn't mentioned. It didn't need to be. I sat on the edge of the bed with the phone in my hand while Brielle got dressed in the bathroom like nothing happened. And downstairs my son poured cereal into his bowl, the spoon clinking softly against the glass, as I scrolled through the insults and finally understood what they were doing with all that paperwork. The spoon clinked again, softer this time, and I forced myself to put the phone down before my son could catch the words on the screen. He didn't need to carry that kind of ugliness into his day. I drove him to school in near silence. At a red light, he glanced over. "People mad at you?" he asked. That question hit harder than any comment online. "No," I said, keeping my eyes forward. "Just adults talking too much." He nodded like he understood, but kids always understand more than we give them credit for. After drop-off, I called Tanya. "You free today?" I asked. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I can meet you in an hour," she said. "Airport diner, the one by the freight entrance." That diner sat close enough to the runway that the windows rattled when planes lifted off. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't quiet. That's why I liked it. Nobody listened. Nobody cared who you were. Tanya slid into the booth across from me, a folder in her hand. She wore a plain blazer and no makeup, the kind of look that told you she came straight from work. "Let me see what you've got," she said. I handed her the bank letter and my phone. She skimmed the details, then let out a short breath through her nose. "This isn't random," she said. "This is set up." "How?" I asked. She pulled out a pen and drew a quick diagram on a napkin. Boxes, arrows, Labels like business line, personal guarantor, collateral. Here's how it works, she said. They open a business line. They make it sound like it's tied to the company. Then they slip in a personal guarantee. If the business defaults, they come after you. I stared at the napkin. But I didn't sign anything. Tanya held my gaze. Not yet, she said. Or maybe they're trying to make it look like you did. She tapped the folder she brought. I've seen this before. People use marriage like a bridge to your credit. They don't steal your money first. They borrow your name. My throat went dry. Brielle keeps saying it's optimization. Tanya almost laughed. That's what people call it when they want you to stop asking questions, she said. Mark, you need to pull every document you've signed since the wedding. Every single one. I sat back, feeling my heartbeat in my neck. I signed the prenup, I said. That's it. Tanya shook her head. You're assuming that's all, she replied. Go home, read it. Not the version you remember, the version you have. I paid for our coffee and left with that napkin folded in my pocket like a warning. Back at the house, Brielle wasn't home. She'd left a note on the counter. Meeting in Atlanta. Back late. No explanation. No address. Just another reminder that she moved freely while I stayed anchored. I went to the filing cabinet in the hallway and pulled out the prenup folder. The paper smelled like printer ink and something sterile. I sat at the kitchen table and started reading from the beginning. Not skimming, not trusting my memory. It took me 20 minutes to find it. A single page, stapled in the back, labeled Addendum. I stared at it, confused, because I didn't remember seeing it in that law office. The wording looked harmless at first. A paragraph about supporting marital stability, another about shared financial responsibility. Then I hit the line that made my stomach drop. In the event husband agrees to support wife's family business operations, it went on to describe obligations, liability, cooperation with credit requests. My hands stayed steady, but something cold moved through my chest, slow and sharp. I thought about the attorney misreading that asset code. Brielle snapping at him, the speed of her correction. That wasn't panic, that was protection. A notification buzzed on my phone, then another, then another. I glanced down. Brielle had posted a family photo from our wedding day. My son smiling in the middle, her hand on my arm like she owned it. The caption read, "Some men love the benefits of family, but run from the responsibility." Comments rolled in fast. Preach, know your worth, don't settle. My name still wasn't there, but everyone knew who she meant. The phone vibrated again with a text from Harold. Be careful, Marcus. You're making yourself look bad. I set the prenup addendum flat on the table, took a picture of it, then slid it back into the folder without bending the corner. The front door creaked slightly as the air shifted, and I found myself staring toward the hallway, listening for the sound of Brielle's car in the driveway, even though she wasn't supposed to be home yet. My fingers already moving to unlock the Notes app again. My fingers hovered over the Notes app, then I typed anyway. Date, time, the addendum page, Harold's text, Brielle's post. It felt strange to log my own life like a case file, but the alternative was worse, pretending none of it mattered. Brielle didn't come home until after midnight. I stayed upstairs in the guest room, not to make a point, but because I didn't trust my own mouth. One wrong sentence and she'd turn it into a story. One raised voice and she'd have proof of the version of me she'd already been selling. The next morning, I moved through the routine like always. Breakfast, school, work. The difference was what I did between those things. During lunch, I sat in my truck and pulled credit reports on my phone. Then I downloaded security logs from my banking apps. I requested archive statements going back 2 years. Every notification, every login, every code request got saved. At home that night, I scanned the prenup, the addendum, and every financial document in the cabinet. I emailed copies to myself and to a new address I created that Brielle didn't know about. Passwords got changed. Two-factor authentication got switched back to my number. I set up alerts for anything new. Credit inquiries, account changes, loan applications. None of it required drama, just precision. Tanya called while I was labeling files. You found something, she said, not even asking. There's an addendum, I told her. A page I don't remember seeing. A pause. Then her voice sharpened. That's exactly what I was afraid of. What do I do next? "You stop treating this like a marriage problem," she said. "You treat it like fraud." She gave me a name, a lawyer in Washington, D.C., not a divorce guy, not a loud litigator, a trust and estate attorney who handled high-value assets, complicated structures, people who didn't want their business in the street. "He'll understand what's happening," Tanya said, "and he won't get emotional about it." 2 days later, I took a personal day and drove north alone. No suitcase, just a slim folder in the passenger seat and my phone charging in the cup holder. Virginia wasn't far, but the distance felt like a reset. I stopped once for gas, once for coffee, then kept moving until I reached a small cabin-style office outside the city, the kind of place you'd never notice unless you were looking for it. The attorney's name was Samuel Price, mid-50s, clean suit, calm eyes. He didn't smile much, but he listened like every word mattered. He didn't ask why I married Brielle. He didn't ask how I felt about her. He asked what I could prove. I laid out the documents on his desk: bank letter, login history, addendum, Harold's message, Brielle's public posts. He read everything without reacting, then looked up. "You're being staged," he said, "and they think you don't know." My throat tightened, but my voice stayed level. "What does that mean?" He leaned back. "It means they're building a paper trail," he said. "So when the debt lands, you'll look like the one who agreed to it." He slid a blank form toward me. "This is a confidentiality agreement," he said. "From this point on, you speak through counsel. You don't argue, you don't explain, you document. We control the timeline." I signed it. Not like the prenup in Atlanta, not pressured, not cornered. I signed it because the logic was clean. On the drive back to Charlotte, I noticed a dark sedan behind me on I-85. It stayed there through 2 lane changes. Then it followed when I exited for food and got back on the highway 5 minutes later. Could have been coincidence, could have been nothing. Still, the back of my neck tightened. At the next interchange, I took a different ramp than I needed, looped around, then rejoined. The sedan stayed with me until the next exit, then disappeared. My phone buzzed when I crossed into North Carolina. Unknown number. Don't make this hard on the family. No name, no signature, just a sentence that carried weight. I didn't reply. I screenshot it, saved it to the folder, and kept driving, already rehearsing how I'd speak when Brielle asked where I'd been, already deciding which parts of my day belonged to her and which parts didn't anymore. The unknown number stayed in my mind all weekend, not like a threat that made me jump, but like a hand resting on your shoulder when you didn't ask for it. I took my son to the barber on Saturday, helped him with a school project on Sunday, and kept the house running the way I always had. Brielle floated in and out, cheerful in front of him, clipped with me when we were alone. Monday morning started like any other. Coffee, keys, badge. I walked into the warehouse office a little before 7, nodded at my operations lead, and checked the schedule. By 7:15, accounting asked me to come back. Linda from finance stood in the doorway with a tight face and a printout in her hand. "Marcus, we got a call from the bank," she said. "They need an urgent verification." "For what?" I asked. She lowered her voice. "They say you're listed as a personal guarantor on a business line out of Atlanta." My stomach dropped, but my voice stayed steady. "That's not possible." Linda held up the paper. "They already ran it through. They're flagging your profile. They also pulled your credit." I took the printout. My name sat next to an account number I'd never seen. Under it, a note. "New credit line opened. Verification pending." My chest tightened, not because I didn't expect it, but because it happened faster than I thought. They weren't waiting for me to mess up. They were moving first. My phone buzzed. A credit monitoring alert. New account opened. Then another. Score decreased. I stared at the notifications until the words blurred. A quote from my grandfather flashed through my head, something he used to say when men tried to take shortcuts around truth. "When a man can't win clean, he'll try to win quiet." I handed Linda the paper back. "Tell them I'm calling," I said. I walked out of the office, got into my truck, and called the bank number listed. They asked for a verification code. I told them the number on file wasn't mine. The rep paused. "Sir, we have a signed guarantee," she said carefully. "It appears valid." "It's not," I replied. "Freeze the process. Mark it as suspected fraud. I want the signature file and the application packet." She said she'd escalate it. I heard typing. then a new tone. "We can place a temporary hold, but you'll need to submit documentation." "You'll get it," I said. I didn't drive back into the warehouse. I drove home. Brielle's car was in the driveway. She wasn't supposed to be back until later, but there it was, parked neatly like nothing was wrong. Inside, she stood at the counter pouring coffee into a travel mug, dressed like she was heading to a showing. Hair done, makeup light, calm. She looked up with a soft smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Hey," she said, "you're home early." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam anything down. I set my keys on the counter and watched her hands. "There's a business line opened in my name," I said, "a guarantee out of Atlanta." The mug paused midair. For half a second she looked caught. Then she recovered. "What are you talking about?" she asked, like I was speaking another language. "Don't," I said. "I already spoke to the bank." Her shoulders sagged, not from guilt, from irritation. She leaned against the counter, eyes narrowing. "You're doing this again," she said. "Always accusing, always suspicious." "Brielle," I said, keeping my voice low, "did you do this?" Her face changed, fast. Tears rose like a switch flipped, a shaky inhale, a hand pressed to her chest. "Why are you attacking me?" she cried. "I'm trying to help us, and you come in here like I'm a criminal." I didn't react to the tears. I'd seen Denise do the same thing. Cry first, confuse the room, make the other person look like the problem for asking questions. Brielle grabbed her phone with trembling hands. "I can't do this," she sobbed. "You're scaring me." Then she hit call. 10 minutes later, Denise walked in like she'd been waiting in the car. She didn't even greet me. She went straight to Brielle and wrapped her arms around her. "Baby, it's okay," she said loudly, like she wanted the neighbors to hear. "Some men just don't know how to love right." Brielle shook against her shoulder, making soft sounds that felt rehearsed. Denise looked at me over Brielle's head. "What did you do to her?" she demanded. I stood there, hands at my sides, feeling something hard settle inside me. Not anger, clarity. "I asked a question," I said. "That's all." Denise scoffed. "You're cold," she said. "You've always been cold." Brielle needed a partner, not a man who treats her like a suspect. Brielle peeked through her tears. "I'm scared of you right now," she whispered. That sentence hung in the kitchen like smoke. My son's backpack sat by the stairs. His school photo was on the fridge. The life I'd tried to keep steady was right there in front of me, and they were rewriting it in real time, turning me into a villain inside my own home. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I walked past them, went upstairs and opened my laptop. That night, after my son fell asleep, I sat in my truck in the driveway, engine off, phone in my hand, looking at the credit alert again. I thought about my first wife, the way she used to squeeze my hand when I got quiet, the way she trusted me without asking for proof. I pictured my son at school, telling kids his dad worked hard, his dad kept his word, his dad was steady. If I stayed silent one more time, the story they were building would become the only story anyone believed. I unlocked my phone and scrolled to Samuel Price's number, my thumb hovering as I listened to the faint sound of Brielle moving around upstairs. My thumb pressed Samuel Price's name before I could second guess it. He answered on the second ring, voice calm, like he'd been expecting me. "Marcus," he said, "tell me what happened." I spoke in short pieces: bank verification, new debt, Brielle's tears, Denise showing up on command. The way the word scared landed in my kitchen like a weapon. Samuel didn't interrupt. When I finished, he let a beat pass. "Good," he said finally. "Now we move." The next morning, he called me before I even reached the warehouse. "I have something," he said. I pulled into a gas station off the highway, parked near the side and put him on speaker. "The bank sent over the metadata on the guarantee file," he said. "Digital signature trail, IP address, device fingerprint. It lines up with a network registered to Harold Carter's office." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "That's not all," he continued. "Last night I received an email from an anonymous source, a former employee of your father-in-law. He says he doesn't want to be part of a crime." Samuel forwarded it while we stayed on the call. I opened it and read. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. Just facts. Dates. A list of shell companies Harold used to move money around. Names of 2 bookkeepers. A note about how they had a new husband now and needed to get the credit line through before he got wise. My mouth went dry. At the bottom, the former employee had attached a chain of internal emails. Harold instructing his staff. Brielle looped in. Denise telling someone to keep Marcus calm until the paperwork clears. I didn't feel shocked. I felt confirmed. The difference mattered. Shock makes you flail. Confirmation makes you focus. They used me, I said. Samuel's tone stayed even. They're using your identity as collateral, he corrected. Then they plan to frame you as the one who agreed. I looked through the attached PDF again. One email mentioned a transfer between 3 LLCs in the same week. Another talked about moving funds to a holding account so it wouldn't show on a basic review. Samuel spoke again. Here's their weakness, he said. They can cry about marriage all day. They can spin stories. But they can't explain those transactions under oath. While we talked, my phone buzzed with a notification from Brielle's social media. She'd posted a quote in cursive text over a photo of herself smiling. Emotional abuse doesn't leave bruises. Comments flooded in. Stay strong. We see you. Protect yourself. That post wasn't for healing. It was cover. It gave her a narrative before anyone asked questions. I didn't respond. Not publicly. Not privately. I took a screenshot and saved it. Another alert popped up. A missed call from an Atlanta number. Then a text. Harold, you need to stop before you embarrass yourself. I stared at it for 2 seconds, then forwarded it to Samuel. Perfect, Samuel said. Keep sending everything. At work, I asked my assistant to block my calendar for the next morning. No reason given. No explanation needed. My team knew I rarely took personal time. They didn't push. During lunch, I called Tanya and told her what Samuel found. She stayed quiet for a moment, then exhaled. I'm sorry, she said, but I'm glad you know now. How do I make sure they can't keep moving? I asked. You don't argue with them, Tanya replied. You lock down your credit, you file the fraud report, and you let the bank's legal team do what they do best. Samuel sent me a formal notice letter that afternoon. It wasn't long. It didn't threaten. It simply stated that any financial activity tied to my name without direct verification was being disputed and would be pursued as fraud. He told me to print it, sign it, and overnight it to the bank. That night, I sat at the kitchen table again with my son's math homework spread out in front of him. He worked through fractions, tongue sticking out slightly when he concentrated. Brielle stayed upstairs, door closed, phone buzzing every few minutes. I helped him finish, signed his assignment sheet, and watched him carry his backpack to the front door for the morning. When he went to bed, I pulled out my laptop and booked an in-person appointment with the bank's fraud department for the next day. Then I emailed Samuel back the signed letter and followed his instructions to the letter. At 11:47 p.m., another message came through from that unknown number. Last chance, don't do this. I screenshot it, saved it, and set my phone face down on the table while the printer hummed beside me, spitting out the packet I'd bring to the bank in the morning. The printer finished, the last page sliding out with a soft scrape. I stacked the packet, clipped it, and set it by my keys so I wouldn't forget it in the morning. A few hours later, I walked into the bank with that same packet under my arm, signed forms in place, screenshots printed, email chains highlighted. The fraud rep listened, asked questions, then excused herself to speak with legal. By the time she returned, her tone had changed. Mr. Adeyemi, she said, we're placing an immediate hold on any activity tied to this line. Our counsel will be contacting the originating parties. I thanked her, shook her hand, and left without any victory speech in my head. That wasn't my style. I just wanted my name back. 2 days later, Brielle handed me an invitation like it was a peace offering. We're going to Savannah, she said. Anniversary weekend. My parents booked it. We need to show up together. I stared at the card. Riverfront Hotel, formal attire, friends and partners. You already planned it, I said. It's important, she replied. People talk. Don't embarrass me. She didn't say don't embarrass us, just her. I went anyway. Not because I wanted to celebrate, because I knew what it was. A stage. A room full of witnesses. A place where they could shape the story before the bank could. Savannah was warm and busy when we arrived. Brielle moved through the lobby like she belonged to it, greeting people with quick hugs, leaning in close, laughing at things that weren't funny. I walked behind her with my hands in my pockets, feeling every glance that landed on me and slid away. Harold greeted me with a clap on the back. "There he is," he said loudly, "the man of the hour." Denise gave me a tight smile. "Try to enjoy yourself," she said, like she was giving instructions. The ballroom filled up fast. Brielle's friends from Atlanta, a few of Harold's business contacts, couples who loved gossip but called it concern. A live band played something smooth enough to mask tension. Dinner came. Drinks flowed. Brielle stayed near the center of it all, soaking up attention like it was oxygen. Then she stood and tapped her glass. People quieted down. "I just want to say something," she began, voice bright. "Marriage is work, and sometimes you find out that the person you married isn't who you thought." A few people laughed politely. My jaw tightened, but I kept my face calm. No reaction would look better than any argument. Brielle kept going, eyes moving across the room like she was performing. "I've tried to build a life with someone who refuses to step up," she said. "Someone who acts like responsibility is a punishment. Someone who, honestly, I'm not sure ever loved me for me." Harold nodded slowly beside her, his face set like he was judging a trial. Denise pressed a hand to her chest in fake heartbreak. Brielle turned her gaze toward me. "Marcus, I'm done pretending," she said. Then she lifted a thick set of papers. I filed for divorce. A ripple went through the room. Gasps. People leaning toward each other. Phones coming out under tables. Brielle's voice sharpened. "He married me like I was a ladder," she said. "He wanted access. He wanted security. He wanted what my family built." That word again. Built. Harold stepped closer, standing beside her like a prosecutor. "We gave you a chance," he said to me, loud enough for the room, "and you repaid it with deceit." Something old stirred in me, that familiar ache from years ago, the one that came after my first wife died, and everyone suddenly had an opinion about how I was surviving. People assumed a black man raising a kid alone had to be desperate, had to be broken, had to be looking for an easy way out. For a second, I felt that same loneliness. Then it passed, because I wasn't alone anymore. Not legally, not this time. The band stopped playing. The room waited. Brielle held the papers out like she was presenting the final blow. I didn't touch them. Samuel Price walked in. He wasn't dressed like the crowd. No loud suit, no flashy tie, just clean and professional, carrying a briefcase. Beside him stood a woman in a navy blazer with a bank badge clipped to her lapel. Conversation died instantly. Samuel didn't look at Brielle first. He looked at Harold. "Mr. Carter," he said, "I'm Samuel Price. I represent Marcus Adeyemi." Harold's smile faltered. Brielle's eyes narrowed. "What is this?" she snapped. Samuel opened the briefcase and pulled out a folder thicker than the one Harold had shoved at me months ago. He handed a copy to the bank representative, then placed the original on the table in front of Brielle. "This," he said calmly, "is evidence of fraud, identity misuse, and conspiracy to obtain credit under false pretenses." Brielle's laugh came out sharp and forced. "You're insane," she said. "He's making this up." Samuel didn't flinch. "No," he replied. "You signed for this. Your father directed it, and the digital trail confirms it." Harold's face turned stiff. Denise blinked fast, the first crack in her performance. The bank representative stepped forward. "We have metadata tied to your office network," she said to Harold. "We also have internal emails outlining intent." Brielle's mouth opened, then closed again. Her hands tightened around the divorce papers like she could crush the truth back into silence. "This is a setup," she hissed. "He planned this." Samuel tilted his head slightly. "The only planning here was yours," he said. "Marcus simply kept records." Harold's voice rose. "You can't do this in front of people," he barked. Samuel's tone stayed flat. "You chose the room," he said. No shouting from me, no grand speech, just quiet facts stacked higher than their lies. Brielle looked around for support, but the faces in the crowd had changed. People who loved drama didn't love risk. Partners and friends started stepping back, eyes avoiding Harold's. Denise reached for Brielle's arm, whispering something frantic. Harold stared at the folder like it might explode. I stood up slowly, adjusted my jacket, and turned away from the table without saying a word. My feet carried me through the stunned silence, past the band, past the flowers, past the people who just watched a story collapse. Outside the ballroom, my phone buzzed once with a new email from Samuel, labeled "Next Steps," and I kept walking toward the elevator while the chatter behind me started again. Quieter now, sharper, because everyone suddenly had a different version of the truth to talk about. Samuel's "Next Steps" email turned into a steady rhythm of forms, calls, and deadlines. Nothing dramatic, just consequences unfolding the way they always do when paperwork finally meets truth. The bank froze the line of credit within 48 hours. Their legal department opened an investigation on the originating documents, and I signed an affidavit confirming I never authorized the guarantee. Samuel filed a civil claim for fraud and conspiracy. The language was plain, almost boring, which made it even more satisfying. No emotion, no insults, just facts lined up like bricks. Brielle tried calling the morning after Savannah. I let it go to voicemail. She called again, then texted. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't answer. 2 days later, Denise called from a number I didn't recognize. Then Harold tried. Then an unknown number sent another message. Let's talk like adults. I forwarded it all to Samuel and kept moving. At work, I stayed professional. My team knew something was happening, but I never brought it into meetings. The warehouse still had trucks to load, drivers to schedule, customers to keep. Handling business gave me a kind of calm that Brielle never understood. Some people think silence is weakness. For me, silence was discipline. A week later, Tanya met me at the same diner near the airport. She didn't ask for details. She just slid a small envelope across the table. "Credit monitoring premium," she said. "I paid for the year. Don't argue with me." I shook my head, almost smiling. "You always trying to run my life," I said. "Somebody has to," she replied. "And you're too stubborn to accept help unless it's disguised as a bill." Brielle's broker firm dropped her quietly. No public announcement. Just a short email that said her association with an ongoing investigation violated their risk policies. Friends who once liked her posts stopped commenting. People backed away the same way they always do when a pretty story turns messy. Harold lost 2 contracts within the month. Not because anyone cared about me, because partners care about liability. They don't want their names anywhere near a fraud file. Denise tried one last play. She showed up at my house on a Saturday while my son was inside playing video games. She stood on the porch holding a grocery bag like she came to make peace. "Marcus," she said, voice trembling, "you're destroying our family." I didn't invite her in. "You should leave," I told her. Her eyes flashed. "After everything we did for you?" "You didn't do anything for me," I said. "You used me." She opened her mouth like she wanted to cry again, then realized I wasn't the audience anymore. 2 weeks after that, I moved. Not far, just enough to breathe. A small rental house outside Charlotte with a fenced backyard and a quiet street. My son helped carry boxes. He didn't complain once. He just asked where his bed should go and whether the Wi-Fi would reach his room. Every evening after work, we went to Freedom Park. Sometimes we walked. Sometimes we sat on a bench and ate pretzels from a paper bag. He talked about school, about friends, about what he wanted to be when he grew up. One afternoon he asked, out of nowhere, "Dad, why didn't you yell at her?" I looked at him for a second. "Because yelling doesn't make people honest," I said. "Paper does." He nodded slowly, like he was filing that away for later. On the final night before the divorce was signed, I sat alone at the kitchen table in the new house with the documents Samuel had sent. The fridge hummed. A dish towel hung over the oven handle. My son's sneakers sat by the door, still dusty from the park. I signed where I needed to sign, slid the pages into the envelope, and set it beside my keys. Then I rinsed my coffee mug, dried it, and placed it in the cabinet, moving through the routine like I'd been here my whole life.